Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran, and I tell you, we're on time this morning, not rushed. My schedule was a little screwed up last week, which made me a little, I guess, for a better word, disoriented. But we're live and well this morning, and of course, I want to thank you for joining us for this show. We got a great guest today. But I want to first introduce my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good morning, Todd. As usual, it's great to be on the show and talking about new media and podcasting. And it seems like that there's always a lot of stuff to talk about and lots of things going on in the space.
Well, I tell you, I've got some tidbits to share with you. I can't share too much because we're going to announce I do my annual State of the Podcast Union tomorrow during the Podcast Awards slate announcement. I'll share with you guys some of those little tidbits I'm finding, which is very curious this year. I'm seeing a change, but I'll share with that with you in a second. But first thing I want to do is introduce our guest this morning. I want to introduce Francesco from Spreaker. And I'm going to just apologize up front. I'm going to completely destroy your last name if I actually tried it twice. And but good evening, because you're in Berlin. Good evening.
Good morning, Todd. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you here and to talk about what's happening at Spreaker. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Spreaker, you can go over to Spreaker.com. And check it out. But I tell you, what we've been seeing, Rob, is, every year I have 42 to 44 listeners that take 4 categories each, a minimum of 2, but usually 4, and they go through and they review. This year we gave them the top 40 nominations in each category. And they go through, and we have a grading sheet for them. And I've been dealing with exasperation all week with the listeners, because some of the same listeners have helped me in years past, and lots of folks that just are not getting it when it comes to their audiences and making sure media is being able to be found on their website, and podcasters that are calling themselves podcasters, but the only thing they have is a YouTube channel. There's definitely a shift.
So is it worse than it's been in the past? Because I think that this is like the same complaint almost every year.
It's worse.
It's worse now.
Yeah.
So probably there's more fragmentation in the podcasting space. Is that probably what it is?
There is. And I had... take, for example, I'm glad I gave them 40 in the video podcast category, because 5 of them were just simply eliminated because we couldn't find them on iTunes. We couldn't find their video on iTunes. We couldn't find them on any of the other directories. We couldn't find them anywhere except they had YouTube channels. We couldn't find RSS feeds. Many times they had an audio RSS feed, but they didn't have so how can you be a video podcaster if you don't distribute your video, and it's only up on YouTube, and you can only see it on a website or on maybe the YouTube app or something. So, that was just, to me, was probably one of the big wide eye openers from, because they were just simply eliminated because they don't carry a video distribution feed. And to me, that boggles my mind that they would give up, well over, huge numbers of devices that they can't be on, or at least can't.
Todd, it does make me wonder if we're seeing a transition from the term podcast as a term for a specific form of distribution, and it's just people are using it as a term to describe online, content.
It was primarily the video guys. The audio folks pretty much across the board were fine, with a few exceptions. The few exceptions were people that were using SoundCloud. That is just someone needs to have a talk with those folks. We need to get them on and say, hey, you got a problem. Anyone that's hosting on SoundCloud, I'd be very, very careful. It's a great platform, but boy, oh boy, it does nothing for them from feeds that are jacked up. It's just, it's pretty incredible, really.
Well, yeah, and you have to apply to their beta program to have your feed turned on with SoundCloud too.
Yeah.
So it's not a turnkey thing for anybody that's putting content up there.
Yeah, and there was a lot of SoundCloud guys that just had their SoundCloud player, and that's it. That's all they had.
Yeah.
And forget it when it comes to trying. I mean, the actual display of an RSS feed on a website now. Old school guys are still doing it, but the new folks, forget it. They're putting up iTunes. They're putting up Stitcher. That's what I saw primarily. There was just site after site after site after site. You couldn't find the feed. Now I know where to go to find the feed because we wanted to have it for, to be able to put up on the website when we announce the slate so that people can subscribe to their shows. But the average Joe is not going to know where to go dig, and find the find the RSS feed. So yeah, there is a change afoot. I'm telling you, Rob. It's I don't know if it's good or bad. We'll have to get into that more later.
So is the slate for the Podcast Awards going to be announced, was it this Sunday? Is that what you were shooting for?
Yeah, and we're a little behind. I think we've got 4 more categories that have to come in, and technically I have to have everything into the accounting firm today by about 1 p.m. About 1 p.m. my time, for them to turn it around and have it back to me tomorrow at noon. And then that gives us 3 hours to populate the database and get other things set up in basically for our presentation. But I think we'll be okay. The last couple of folks are saying they're coming in because what we do is we take each of the grading sheets. There's 3 to 4 grading sheets per category. They get merged from a scoring standpoint, then racked and stacked, and just the accounting firm verifies that we're the numbers are right, and they really do just a cursory look, but gives me a little better feeling that someone says come back, oh, you showed favoritism, we can send them over to the accounting firm. But anyway, that's that. So
Todd, let's say a podcaster got nominated, but they don't have an RSS feed. Do they automatically get excluded from nomination?
They don't, but their score gets impacted. We have a grading scale, and you get so many nominations or grades a certain number of points, RSS feed, contact on your book. It's all on the website and what we look for.
Yeah, and
it's just basic stuff: branding, contact email, RSS feed, whether or not they have. And we look for iTunes, and we look for the variety of sites that we look for a player. Is the player one click away? If I get to the website and I don't see the podcast, if I see the link if I see something that says podcast, can I click on that and see the player? The just real basic stuff. Quite frankly, those folks that don't have their podcast on the front page are losing, 75-80% of the people that hit their website anyway. But, sometimes you just can't tell people that. They have to learn the hard way. And generally we found that, sites, and I can, I'm a big statistics guy, so I can really go in and dig deep. And that's what I was doing for about 6 hours yesterday, was mulling over this data and literally pounding my head against the table here. A little bit worried, Rob.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting conversation, and I think talking to Francesco today about Spreaker, I think, is good timing, because I think what we are seeing in the podcast area, good or bad, depending on your perspective, is that there is a fragmentation going on, and I believe what's kind of happening is content is starting to come to the top and be most important. And I think a lot of the platforms, and especially the newer platforms, are really seeing it as a way to kind of capture kind of exclusive content. And I think it's not necessarily a bad trend, I don't believe, but it is kind of a threat to the traditional podcasting model. But it does seem like a lot of companies are are building their business models around trying to hold on to a particular content provider and not being so open to being on all platforms. And clearly, from a business perspective, I can see the rationale for that. So, what do you think about that, Francesco?
I totally agree, Rob. On a business perspective, a lot of companies actually behave the way you said. I have to say that we as Spreaker have had a different approach since the beginning. We have been thinking that being open and giving the users the ability to spread their content to all the platforms that, they're out there, and of course make sense for syndicating their content is a good thing for the user, of course, and for us at the end. But of course, the reason why we do that is that because we are kind of a slightly different platforms from many other platforms that are out there, because we focus more on the creation side. A lot of products out there are great for distribution, but you have to have a product ready and packaged and then do the delivery. We also help people creating content, audio content specifically, and that's why we can be more open on the distribution side.
You know, one thing that, Rob, that I've seen recently, and for Francesco Azari as well, is that, I've had, obviously I wear two hats here. I do this show and then do the stuff at Raw Voice. And, over the past, I say just a couple of weeks, one particular network is, they're playing hardball with the content creators. They've asked them to essentially sign exclusives, and they want them to no longer do business with anyone else. They want to be exclusive on an advertising standpoint, and so it's caused a little bit of ripple, because these guys are calling me or emailing me and say, "What should I do?" And I says, "Well," I said, "the choice is yours. And if you're going to be in a contract with someone or make an agreement, understand that, once you're there, if we or someone else has something to offer, you're kind of locked in." And I would talk with the other folks in that network. I'd reach out to those shows and say, "Okay, are you actually making money? What's the atmosphere?" And go to them direct. Don't before you sign anything. So I think there's always, and we noticed it a year and a half ago at NAB, everyone's looking for content. Everyone wants content. They want it exclusive. And it's kind of hard to do in this digital age, to try to, I guess for a better word, have that old television model where this show belongs to this station. We've got a lot of people out there that are independent. And it makes sense in some instances, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, Todd, and I think you're seeing it with, a place like YouTube
Right.
has been wildly successful with that concept and that model of not being so open. And I think that there's a place for that in the market, and I think clearly that's the direction that the market is going. But I do think that there are good platforms that are working on trying to be more open, and I think that the big players today, in this space are mostly open, as far as on the podcasting side. So I don't know what you think about that, but it does feel like that more open oftentimes wins.
That's true. So let's talk just a little bit about what Spreaker's doing, and we definitely want to kind of focus on Francesco's company. And I keep, it's I'll probably switch between saying his name correctly and saying incorrectly today. So, but coming to you guys' website, just on the face makes me go, So why don't you tell us completely about the mission and what you guys are doing? And we've heard some exciting stuff, of course, about iHeartRadio. So why don't you tell us what's going on over there with all that?
Basically, what we want to accomplish, and we see the product we have today as a first iteration towards this biggest goal that we have in mind, is is to create a platform that redefines radio the way we think of it as of today. Basically, allowing people to have an experience which is very similar to what people today think of radio, but which starts in a different way, where different people, like you're doing, can create their own show, and these shows then are assembled into playlists or stations that can be delivered and consumed in a kind of a lean-back experience. And that's the idea. That's where we're going, of course. As of today, he can go and basically create his own radio show with no other tools needed. I mean, apart from a microphone and a laptop, computer, or a mobile phone or a tablet. It's basically a very simple mixing console, which allows you to use your voice, a bunch of sound effects, basses, and create something that can also be broadcast live. And this is the core of the product. And around this, we have built a community for people to listen and discover talent. And the talent is really the keyword that we use today, because we know, we believe, and we know, of course, that there's a lot of people who have talent out there that need to be discovered, and this is kind of part of our mission.
Go ahead, Rob.
Oh, I was going to ask. Yeah, it seems like that the problem that that you're trying to solve is to try and create an easier content creation scenario, and I think that's another huge trend that we're seeing in the broader scope of things, is creating tools and platforms, like Spreaker, that can basically make it a lot easier for people to create podcast content, right? And I think that's very, very powerful as you look into the future, because for most podcasters today, it's challenging, it's expensive to really do a great job of creating content now. I mean, you need to have specialized equipment, but I see this trend in the industry, and I hear about other platforms that are also working on this too, of creating easy, just click and record type of scenarios. And I think that one of the things that will make that successful is if the quality of the recordings can be at the level of what kind of more traditional podcasters have been able to create with expensive recording equipment. So can you kind of talk about that issue, and do you see it as a huge trend going into the future, making tools that are really easy for people to produce content?
So, first of all, the quality issue, I think, has two phases. There's, of course, the sound quality experience, and things have and are improving fast and great. I mean, the quality of sound that you can have today speaking into your iPhone microphone is amazing. I mean, it's something that was not possible with a mobile phone a few years back. And I think that today that kind of quality is good enough for most purposes. I mean, of course, it's not broadcast quality. It's not the perfect thing that a professional podcaster would want, but in many contexts, it's good enough. Let's say you're in the field, you want to grab an interview at an event, and the quality that you're going is amazing. The other problem with quality is actually the quality of the content itself, and of course, we would love to help in this respect as well, but it all comes down to the content creator or the podcaster in the end. What we've been thinking was, and we thought about this in the past, and we're also thinking about this as an evolution of the platform, is the chance of providing some sort of templates for people to be able to create something that makes sense in a media way, even for people which do not have an experience. So of course, experienced producers do not need the stuff. It's like having a pre-made PowerPoint template, but first-time users, and we have a lot of first-time podcasters or people who have great ideas but have no experience on how to put that down in audio might find this very, very useful. And yeah, I really think that the key for keeping the audience engaged and interested in the content is, of course, content quality. Of course, the audio point of view. If I have to suffer for listening to something which is interesting for me, but if it creates pain in my ears, of course, I'm not going to stay engaged with the content for as long as I could, of course.
Yeah. So when you talk about a template, are you talking about creating almost like a show format that the podcaster would just to speak into, so the back end or up at the cloud, you could have like bumpers and pre-rolls and other types of sound that could be added to the broadcast on an automated way, and the podcaster would just have to speak into the microphone, and that's the whole production right there.
Yeah, that's exactly the idea. Something we are very intrigued in and finding out. Of course, you can do this yourself without a template, but it would be easier for people to approach this, let's say, frame in which they create their content. And this is something we would like to explore.
Is I think the thing I get a little weirded out, and one of my always pet peeves has been shows that I hear over on like Blog Talk Radio, and those shows, it's just like running fingernails down a chalkboard. It's to me, listening to those shows at the sample rate that they record at, I don't see how the host even can handle it. The second I hear a show that says that has that Blog Talk Radio entry, I just hit stop. Just because I don't want to be subjected to and I may want to listen to the content because I just don't want to be subjected to just the sound. So what have you guys done then to make the audio, we've got a pretty techie crowd here from a listener standpoint because we got all content creators listening to this. What are the specs that you guys actually record at from a sample rate?
We record everything on Spreaker at 44 kilohertz stereo.
And then what is the bit rate then?
Kilobits. So yeah, no compromises on quality.
Okay.
I think that the main issue with BTR here is that their backend system, they have been doing a great job, and of course they're very successful, but they work on the phone network basically. They're what they are is a teleconference system with the ability to broadcast the content on air. So you can go up with the bandwidth as much as you want, but if the source material is from the phone network, the PSTN line, no way you can obtain a good quality, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, Todd, I think the issue with Blog Talk Radio has been that they do a lot of their shows over traditional landlines or cell phone calls, right?
Yeah.
Where what Spreaker is trying to do is it's all done in an app that's on your phone, so it's all digital, right? So it's more like what you would experience with Skype.
Okay.
And is that accurate?
It's true. We have a few bandwidth, so that you can actually create something even though you don't have very powerful upstream connection. But yeah, that's true. And from there on, so digital, we stream at the highest quality that makes sense in our opinion for the kind of content, and that's it. Of course, people then complain all the time because we don't have a lot of options for interfacing to the traditional phone net, traditional PSTN. But of course, if you're serious in what you're doing, and we have a lot of hosts doing this, there are little hardware tools, pretty inexpensive, that you can connect to your laptop and give you the same functionality, and we don't necessarily need to build this kind of thing in the cloud.
For those of you that are listening, where you do have a little bit of background noise going on with Skype, so I apologize about that. Francesco is calling in from Berlin, so sometimes the interwebs don't cooperate with us real well, so we're just getting a little bit of scratchy feedback, so we apologize about that. One thing when I first got to you guys' website, I'm going to be kind of honest here. When I first got there, it irritated me that you made me log in to see anything. I came to the website and I'm like, okay, because I think in today's age, we just kind of want to get with it. And if we want to say, okay, if it's great, okay, let me go ahead and create an account. Is there any reason why you guys have the front of the website requiring a login before you get into the actual guts of the system? Because I don't know if I think that isn't that a limiting factor? At least it would seem to be, in my opinion.
It's an experiment that we've been doing, and honestly, I think that things will change pretty quickly. The reason why we would require login is that historically we have not been doing a great job at organizing content, of course. So, and actually, what happens is that a lot of people come to our website because of links posted on Twitter or people that they know and make a show, and of course they are able to listen to the content and explore the website without signing up. If people go directly to Spreaker, just type in the URL in their browser, www.spreaker.com, didn't historically have an experience if we couldn't have some more data about them, so just feeding them through a registration process. Now, things are changing. We have a new exploration page where we're starting to curate content and telling people what's there. So I think it's about time that we change this approach.
I gotcha. Yeah, so, because I don't think that I remember having seen someone, provided a link, but it's good. If someone's provided a link and you can get there direct without logging in, that's good. And I understand wanting to have the front of the website kind of, I guess for better words, locked down and presentable before you open it up to the public as well. So go ahead, Rob.
Well, I was just going to say that I think that the model that Spreaker is using is its app first, and I think that their strength has been in their apps, because really that's where all the functionality is. I know, is that correct, Francesco?
It's true. It's obviously the future, but I have to say we have still of today more consumers on the website still. They use mobile devices, of course, and we have a mobile optimized website, but most of the content consumers are still on the web.
Yeah.
So do you find then, I just, to me, it just seems so foreign to record a show via the mobile device. I guess when it's audio, it really doesn't matter, but so are people, what are you recommending then when people do this? You recommend if they have a Bluetooth headset, or what's the best practices? Because if I was holding my phone, I would be, doing this all the time. And so what do you guys, and then how, I guess I just need to look at the app. I haven't looked at the app, so it's my fault.
So, of course, you can connect to your phone a lot of microphones. There's a number of microphones ranging from amateur to professional gear out there. And a lot of users do this, so they actually even connect an external mixer to their iPad or their iPhone, and then they're able to control everything that the user or app has an endpoint or an entry point for the streaming. But a lot of users are actually happy with the basic phone mic or the headset mic. On the app, we also give you the ability to mix the sound effects and music itself from your library. So it really depends what your goal is, how much you care about the quality of your production. Like in any user-generated content platform, there are many different levels of users, from the pros to people just testing out the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is the, when you guys are going through, you obviously, if you're racketing, stacking, you're going to be listening to different shows. So I'm sure just like anything else, the quality is going to vary across the board. This to me, I guess, Rob, I'm I'm old. I guess I'm an old school guy, and I just think you need, look what's behind me. Got a mixer back there, a microphone, but we all know you don't need as because I started out doing podcasting. What I had a $5.99 headset from Walmart. That's what my first show was recorded on, and people listened. So, but I think though too in this day and age. People are not as forgiving on audio quality as they used to be. So you still have to, if you're gonna create content, you're gonna want to invest a minimal amount of money to have something that makes sure that the quality's better than just talking into the speakerphone of the phone. And again, like Francesco says, there's lots of different options out there now. It's probably something worthy of me looking up because I haven't really explored the whole ecosystem from using a phone as a production system.
Yeah, I think that there's getting to be better and better tools in that area, Todd. So I think, especially on the iPhone and the iPad, I think that there are mics that you can plug into those devices that are really high quality.
Yeah.
And so I think we might see here over the next couple of years, a real upswing in content coming out of these types of things. I think that the challenge does still get back to quality to a certain extent because, what type of environments are these people actually recording these things in? For years I was all concerned about, being in a room that was sound dampered and there could be a lot of echo in the room and things like that can be factors in creating good quality audio as well. Pop and those type of things that have always been kind of traditional issues that online radio broadcasters have had to deal with since radio started. So I think these are issues that either we become more tolerant of because we want to hear what this person is talking about, or the tools are going to need to get even better to be able to filter those things out. So I think those are the challenges. And I think as we look at Spreaker here, they do have a unique kind of model here. They're making content, and then they have a tie-in with the iHeartRadio folks, which is part of Clear Channel, which they have launched a podcast support area and are partnering with Spreaker to provide all the content for that. And would love to hear from Francesco how that whole partnership works and how content providers can get content into the iHeartRadio platform. It'd be great.
Mm-hmm. So it's actually very, very easy. If you're a Spreaker user, once you've created a show, you will see these large red buttons which say apply for high level basis for being distributed on a high art. And what happens is that once you get picked, you appear in the iHeartRadio app, the iHeartRadio website, together with the other podcasts that they distribute. So this other content is basically coming either from Clear Channel's talents or other hosts that they have cooperation with. So if you go to the iHeart website, for instance, there is a whole section called Spreaker from us out there. We're still in the beta phase. We launched beta at the end of July this year, and I do not know for sure, but in the next couple of weeks probably there will be a transition to the full launch. But that's really on their side. What we do on our side is basically that.
So I had heard from some podcasters that there was some confusion that happened. They basically were on Spreaker creating content. They applied for iHeartRadio, and then something happened to their RSS feed, and we got actually a couple of calls on it, and I didn't know what to tell them. I told them to contact you guys. What is there a change to their RSS feed when they go on iHeartRadio?
Is there? Of course, it's really on the terms and condition and everything that you have to accept. But of course, most of the people do not read the stuff. But when you apply for iHeartRadio officially due to the agreement we have with Clear Channel, actually the home of your content becomes iHeartRadio, and Spreaker just becomes a pass-through. So in order to distribute your content to other outlets, You can do it either manually, distributing the IR links, or just create something else and you can distribute that. But on that specific show, we start acting as a pass-through. So all the what we call seamless shares or automatic distribution of content, including the RSS feeds, get disabled on our side because they need to be enabled on the other side.
Wow. So they actually make you disable the RSS feed on Spreaker side. So does iHeart then provide an RSS feed then?
I'm not sure about this, Todd. Actually, I haven't checked the website. I don't think they do as of today. Most of our users, they are concerned about the RSS feed. Another thing that happens is that the Twitter feed, the Twitter links, and the Facebook links that get sent out are the entire radio links themselves. So this all goes into the direction that they should be the ones who distribute content. Of course, content is still there. What a bunch of our users have done is just create a different show and use the different show with the same content for distributing the thing with the RSS feed.
Could you check your mic connections and stuff? We're getting a lot of feedback. I don't know where it's.
It almost sounds like somebody's typing or something. I don't know for sure.
A cable's loose or something. I don't know exactly. It sounds like there's a loose connection somewhere on stuff. Rob, it goes right back to, I'll be honest, that to me is a little bit concerning because, I've been, okay, so if I was approaching Spreaker, I think you would be a secondary distribution point. I don't think I would want to, because my feed and that being distributed into iTunes, into Zune, into or the Windows Phone, it's not Zune anymore, the Windows Phone, into...
That's still Zune. But
Windows into BlackBerry, into all the online sites, statistics. You're no longer, then your statistics are basically gone. Are you guys getting statistical data then back from iHeartRadio, or has they got their own internal system then?
No, we do get all the data back from them, and we report it to the users.
Wow.
Answer to your point, Todd, I mean, it's fairly easy. It's fine for us being a secondary distribution system. So you can just pick your existing content, publish it on Spreaker, and from Spreaker, publish it on iHeartRadio, and you still have your own primary RSS feed distribution somewhere else that you can use for doing whatever else you want. It's really fine with us. I mean, the thing is, if Spreaker is the point where you're originating your content and you're applying to iHeartRadio, you need to be aware of this limitation and maybe create a secondary distribution point somewhere else.
Right, I gotcha. Is then because I was looking on iHeartRadio and I noticed they've got like Twit and they have some of the big guys. Have they done deals with them directly, or is Twit coming through you to get onto iHeart?
In the specific case of Twit, they're not coming through us, so I think they made a deal directly, but I'm not aware of it.
Right.
Some other shows are coming through us.
Okay. Yeah, so that's interesting. So they, it's kind of, I don't know, Rob, it just strikes me as funny. I don't know why they would want, I guess it's all about, again, they're wanting to wrap up that content as much as they can.
It totally goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Earlier in the show was there is kind of a stratification that's happening. I think on a lot of the newer platforms is that the what's considered to be kind of high end content is getting kind of preferential treatment more and more. And I think that's just part of the trend in this podcast piece. It tends to be kind of the long tail of this, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing what's happening here. I just think it's a natural kind of progression of what typically happens to content just in general.
Yeah.
And I think that it's other platforms are not in a different situation from this. I mean, if you look at Stitcher, it's very, very similar as well. right? And there's other ones out there that are doing a similar model here too, where they're trying to control the distribution of the content that they have on their platform, and that's best for their business, and that's best for the platform, right? And but as a content provider, you need to look at it, in a more complete way. If you don't want to just be on iHeartRadio, you're going to have to produce your show in a different way,
right?
And then get it into Spreaker, and then get it into Stitcher, and get into these platforms to play within the models that are being used out there. If you truly want to have an open kind of cross-platform online syndication strategy, and I had to do that with my radio show for many, many years. I was up on satellite radio, I was up on live streaming platforms, and I unfortunately had to create different versions of my show to comply to what those platforms were, really expecting of me to get that distribution. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing here.
One thing that Stitcher has done is that they now send data back. So we're able to get the statistics data out of them, which was something that was really wanted and needed. And it's now it's that data is public available, to folks like us and others, and we can pull that in and put it in people's stats. So do you think then at some point you guys at Spreaker will be, then again, your ingest system's different. It's not like you're not syndicating. You do have to ingest it with a recording. So it is a different. It's a little different deal,
basically.
Yeah.
But we have all the stats. Of course, our business model is freemium. We make our business on the content producer, so a certain amount of stats is free for everyone, and then there's more sophisticated stats like referrals, where your listeners come from, what kind of device they use, that are just for premium accounts. But all these data is available on our.
So, Francesco, is there a plan at all to enable a content provider to submit an RSS feed to Spreaker that could then be syndicated out to the iHeartRadio folks? I don't know, what's your thoughts on that?
There is. It's actually coming very soon. However, due to the fact that due to some technicalities in our platform, the RSS feed would probably have to be somehow maintained. So it's not like you just post the RSS feed and we just pull the content automatically every time. It would just be a first ingestion, uploading into our platform all your previous shows so that they become available for further distribution. But then from then on, you have to go and upload the new episodes, because due to how our streaming system works, these episodes needs to be actually stored on our cloud. We cannot directly stream from your backend, and all these uploading and storage. And first phase, we'll just want users to manually submit the episodes to Spreaker.
Gotcha. Well, Todd, I think if that's the case, then kind of a reporting situation would be probably more applicable.
Right.
And more current podcasters could get involved in Spreaker and get involved in the iHeartRadio folks without having to just record everything in their platform.
Right. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier, especially if it's just an upload. If it's uploaded and automated,
yep.
But the challenge is, in order to get traction, that metadata is always important. So, simplifying and having some, maybe a submission system similar to a WordPress API or something like that would be helpful, so that you can it's almost like it's automated. You send it, that would be kind of cool from a delivering the audio file is not a big deal. I'm sure most people would be willing to do that. I guess it also too, when it ends up boils down to is it's earballs. I say earballs, but it's the number of people that are actually going to listen. And when you're on iHeart, I think it's a cool way to get on iHeartRadio. but I think at the same point there is also the what is the return on that investment? What is it? Is there a fee? What is the cost to be on Spreaker to go on iHeartRadio? Where does it change from free to freemium? Where does that switch over happen?
So on Spreaker, what we basically sell as packages is broadcasting time and storage for your past episodes.
Yep.
So our free tier allows you to create 30 minutes long episodes, as many as those as you wish, no limits on the number of episodes, and you have a total storage capacity of 10 hours, so which translates to 20 episodes of 30 minutes or more. And then if you want to more, you either delete old content or upgrade. Then our first year is something $39 a year, and you go up to 100 hours of storage, up to 45 minutes broadcast, and you go up from there. Basically, most of our users start with our broadcaster package, 3-hour segments, 500 hour storage, and that's it. Actually, what happens is that if you're picked by iHeartRadio, you become a premium Spreaker user, and they cover your subscription. So basically, you start having a lot of storage for your files, and you can broadcast very long, and then they pay the bill. That's a deal.
Wow, they pay the bills. But then, what is the editorial process? Each show gets reviewed by them, or does it just get reviewed by you? Are you the conduit for them to get in?
We're just a pipeline, actually. We're a technological platform. Right. They have some sort of an editorial tool, and there are like some basic rules that you have to stay within in order to be approved. Of course, your content should have all the relevant metadata, images, description, stuff like that. You should not have like hate speech or say bad things or do bad things within the content, and have a reasonable audience and be reasonably consistent in creating new content and getting updated. And some of these things can be checked automatically, and we do it. If you pass all the automatic checks, then you get into their tool, and they in a few days they just review your content, and if it's good enough, they give you the green light, and you get pulled up.
Is there a restriction on people running advertising in their content, or can they run their advertising?
As of today, there's no restriction.
Okay. Interesting. So it sounds relatively painless, doesn't it, Rob?
Yeah. No. I think it's. So, do you know offhand what percentage of the amount of content providers have been accepted into the iHeartRadio platform at this point, or is that not a number that you guys are releasing?
It's not a number that we're releasing. It's a few hundred, actually, but I can go into the details.
Sure.
If you go to the iHeartRadio website, you have a pretty good idea of how many people are there and that have been picked up from Spreaker.
Yeah, I was going to bring I had it queued earlier. I actually let's see here, iHeartRadio, and then is it Talk Beta? Is that what it's under?
Talk Beta, yeah. Exactly.
I gotcha. Okay, so then they've got it broke down in all the standard categories. So...
There is a Spreaker category on the left.
Oh, yes, there is.
That's where most of our guys are.
I gotcha. That's where they come in that way. Interesting.
Yeah, so Todd, what it looks like to me is that our radio folks are doing deals with the larger podcasters directly, and it sounds like they're picking up kind of the rest from Spreaker, and as the talent kind of rises to the top, right? Then the iHeartRadio folks will select those content providers to add to their catalog, and I think it's a good process. I mean, it sounds like it definitely makes a lot of sense for the platform to do it that way.
I think it's an interesting thing that iHeartRadio is courting podcasters. I think it's hilarious, to be honest with you. It makes me wonder if they, okay, so why? That iHeartRadio is for their radio affiliates, and for this is a cleared channel initiative. So isn't it like I guess I don't fully understand. That must be a completely separate division that's not worried about the radio division, because
Todd, I see this happening at other platforms where the realization is that there's a lot of great content in the podcast area that broadcast radio and online radio want to take advantage of and get into their platforms. I mean, you're seeing it tune in, and I believe that you're going to see it happen more and more at these live streaming and on-demand kind of platforms. Where podcasts are going to be added into the mix, and this is just another example of that change that's happening. I mean, you think about broadcast radio up till today, and it's been a combination of music and spoken word programming, and that's exactly what these platforms are trying to become. They're trying to become a replacement in the car for radio, right? And if you think about it in that way, it actually makes a lot of sense to blend together the best of talk programming, and podcasts offer a choice and a selection that broadcast radio hasn't even had. It's actually taking radio to the next level is really what's happening here.
Well, don't get me wrong. Distribution is distribution. Yeah. I like distribution.
Yeah, that's right.
Anywhere you can be heard is good. And if I'm responsible for chipping away at the radio market share, fantastic. Because
I think, Todd, it was happening no matter what. I think people were going to podcast consumption platforms, and they were spending less time with radio because of it. Well, I mean, it's already happening, right?
Well, in the key here is the more it happens, the more money shifts out of the advertising space and into the podcasting space, So,
Todd's got dollar signs.
It's in the end, there's content creators that create because they love it. But I know the numbers. Those that don't make money quit. They don't make it. They don't make it long term. Very, very few shows make it more than a couple of years. Without any, and there's exceptions, but it's they figure out this is hard work creating media, so, and then they want to get compensated, and it's tough. So, I'm just kind of curious. I don't know if you can reveal the number. Something that we track on our side is that we know pretty much where the markers are. Show 7 is usually a marker. If they get past show 7, they'll usually make it to show 20. But if they make it to 20 to 25 shows, they'll generally, you can almost say that show's going to continue. But oftentimes, the shows that hit 7, they don't, at least 50% of them never make it past 7. What are you guys seeing on your side? Is that anything that you're trending yet that shows are, they get in, they got this grand idea that they want to create content, and then they die? Or is most of the folks you're working with already semi-established?
So I have to say that we have probably many more people who are there just to try out.
We lost him.
This is so easy. You don't need anything. So on every month, we literally have hundreds of thousands of individuals trying this out and never going after maybe episode 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to agree with you. There's definitely a magic number in between. Right now, we're probably seeing a figure closer to 5 or 6. But yeah, probably 7 is the magic number, and the top definitely more experienced than us in this field. So maybe your number is better than ours. But yes, if you go in a specific show, in a specific amount of time, of course, because there are like these people who are not consistent and create episodes randomly spaced, and this is something our platform allows. So, but if you do one show every week for, let's say, 7 weeks, then it's pretty it's pretty probable that you go on at least 6 months or maybe a year.
Yeah. I think what it is too. Don't you think that there's a little bit of unrealistic expectations? Here's a conversation I had. Not so much anymore, but for many years, the conversation I would have with people, and they would be creating a show. Maybe they're 2 months. They've done 5 or 6 episodes, and I get this email. The individual's frustrated and like, no one's listening to my show. I'm, well, what does your numbers show? And he says, well, I got like 300 people listen to my show. And I'm like, great. You're getting started. That's a good number after a couple of months. For someone that's brand new, never done this before, doesn't have a presence on the web, just starting. And yeah. I said to them, I said, you got to think about it this way. I said, where do you work? And they would say, I said, okay, how many employees does your boss address on a weekly basis? And he's like, well, 30. I'm like, well, see, you're reaching more people than your boss is. So, I try to put in that perspective, and oftentimes people would kind of get it, but, someone that's brand new in the space, it takes a couple of years to build a minimum reputation of, first of all, they got to trust you to, be there every week to creating content so that they can build you. I call it building themselves into their lives. They have to figure out that, I know Todd's going to be here every Saturday. I know that show's going to be out.
Yep.
So that dynamic does not change.
Yeah. Well, and also, what most people are run into is that they're busy and they have a lot of things going on in their lives, and they start out with a great idea, and unfortunately there's this kind of this balance that has to be struck around topics, right? Yeah. Of a particular show, and if you create a very narrow niche of topic, right? Oftentimes you can run out of things to talk about. And I mean, because in combination with people getting busy, or if there's some crisis in the family, or if a person's traveling, it's there. There's a lot of things that can get in the way of being a content provider unless you're full time at it.
And it's one of those things too where, it's we can go into that whole topic of dependability. Yeah. It's that's why I have a big bald spot on top of my head, because I don't know if you guys are doing any advertising at all, but when you guys do, you have to approach that with a lot of patience, and especially if you go on the host endorse side where it's not automatically injected, it can cause your hair to go gray in its own instance. I love the host endorsement stuff, but sometimes I think, man, it would just be easier just to insert that ad into the content, even though I know it's not going to have as much impact.
Yeah.
Oh man, we can spend a lot of time on that, but we won't. So from let's talk a little bit about your guys' team, and are you guys venture funded, and what's the business model, and where are you guys on track, and tell us about that.
So our story is kind of funny. We, of course, as you can tell from my name and accent, I'm Italian.
Yeah.
We started the company as a number of co-founders based in Italy, but we immediately established the company in the United States. That was because it made sense on a business perspective to be closer where actually 60% of our customers today are, and including our new partner, Clear Channel, in this venture with iHeartRadio Talk. So we basically were operating some way as a dual company with the head and basically the marketing stuff in San Francisco, and the research and development in Bologna, which is my hometown. I'm talking about the head and everything, but we're really a small operation. We're 10 people overall right now. And earlier this year, we decided to move from Italy. The R&D department actually moved to Germany. So it's been a multinational operation. 2.5 years that we've been around. We are venture funded, actually angel and seed funded. So we received 750,000 euros, so pretty much $1 million at today's exchange rate, from a syndicate of angel investors back in between 2010 and 2011. So when we launched the platform, we actually launched the platform in October 2010. So we've been on the market for 3 years. We now have 2.5 million registered users, and we count, of course, users who consume and produce content and have signed up. And and our business model, as I said, is freemium. So we charge content producers for additional storage, broadcasting time, and statistics.
So you guys done well. If you've got a user base of 2.5 million, that's definitely applaudable. So it sounds like you guys are on the right track, and it's cool. I guess Rob, sometimes you get focused on your day-to-day operations and stuff, and this is pretty cool. I think they found an interesting a niche here. When we had talked a couple of years ago, we thought it would be cool to have like a little app that would just do a short 1 or 2 minute thing. We never really thought of the mobile phone as a full-fledged content platform. So it definitely, it's interesting for me to think that people are, creating just regular full-form content right on their mobile device. It's of course not they can upload too, but at the same time, it is interesting.
Yeah, Todd, I think if you back up and you look at, from the 30,000-foot view of what's happening here, is that I think what we're also seeing is kind of a blending of what has been considered to be kind of like voicemail back in the past. And I believe that some of these platforms are going to be making private groups that can be, conversation can happen through these platforms, not unlike voicemail. So you have this blending of, well, what is a show? I mean,
right.
Is a show to a small group of people that are just your friends, or is a show to a public audience, right, that can go anywhere, right? And so I think that that's the spectrum that's starting to develop right now, is that there's going to become more and more apps that you can get for your mobile phone that will enable you to create public and private networks around audio conversations. And I think that's the next big thing that's happening here. And I think what Spreaker is doing is an example of that movement and where this spoken word content is going towards, right? It's almost like your own personal blog or just to your friends.
Yeah, I guess from that perspective, Rob, I shut down my hotline. I used to have a hotline here people could call because no one was calling the hotline anymore. But the instant I made it available so they could just click on a link on the website to leave an audio comment, the comments pick back up. People just don't like to pick up a phone and at least and make a voicemail anymore. I don't know. I guess it's a sign of the times. I mean, it goes right along that same.
I see it in my own daily life. People just don't leave voicemails anymore. They want to directly connect. But I think if you knew that you could create a private group, right, of people that would be more than one person, but could be small or it could be large, and the audio quality is good.
Right.
And there's tools to record, on your iPad or on your iPhone or Android or Windows or whatever device that you have. It could be a tablet. That I think not everybody's going to do it, but I think that there is going to be more people doing these types of shows using those kind of tools. But I think that the other big thing that's still missing is the ability to do like what we're doing here with Skype, is to bring in co-hosts and things like that and have that audio quality still be good.
Yeah. And and even this show is, we're really largely dependent upon Skype cooperating. And a few times today, Skype is chopped on us, and it's just something that unless you're the only way you're ever going to get that perfect, I think, is if you're all in the same room together. And
yeah, exactly.
Do you find many of your shows that on Spreaker that have co-hosts? Do you find multi-party shows? Are they able to do that?
Yes, they are. They of course use Skype with some tricks. Just to get back to the quality and the mobile device. I mean, if you think about the new iPhone 5S, this thing has a power that a computer 2 years ago didn't have. And
right.
The latest iPhones or latest smartphones from 2 or 3 years ago, I don't really think that that's a problem anymore. I mean, you can have great stuff and you can.
Oh, he really dropped this time.
Instead of a computer, and no one would ever notice. Same thing. So we shouldn't think of the mobile phone as a thing that you can only use in full mobility. It's basically a computer that you can then detach from your studio and bring maybe a smaller version of your studio with you when you're going on the field for taking interviews.
Well, I was just sitting in my lap here. I'm holding the Padcaster. And what this is an enclosure that holds an iPad, and you can put a lens on here and then hook up wireless stuff to it. And there's folks that are using this device to do, interviews and full-length videos, and they're not, they're carrying this versus carrying,
a video camera.
A video camera. Obviously. And they've got a version of this for the Mini, and I think they're actually coming out with a version of this for the actual iPhone itself too, so that people can, they put a nice lens on the front of it, and they get a little better quality and increase the production level. And if you look at the difference in the video quality, it's sometimes I laugh because the camera that's sitting right here in front of me, that's I think it was $7,000 was that camera, and
I point back at you, Todd.
That's right. $7,000 for that camera, and I'm like, okay, so do I need to buy a $7,000 camera anymore? No, you can do stuff like you were doing here for a tenth of that amount.
Yeah, and I think, Todd, that's the big thing that's happening here and changing is that it's probably not going to be too much longer where we'll actually be able to do this show without having to have mixers and special microphones that are like stuck in our faces and webcams. This whole show could be done via a tablet, right? And it would be as good a quality as what we're looking at. So I mean, it's coming. I would love to clear my desk off and have not have all this equipment here.
One thing, though, that Skype has made an announcement on is on December 15th or something like that, they're closing one of their APIs, and podcasters are scrambling, trying to figure out how they're going to record their systems. Now, these are independently hooked up. I don't have to worry about it. I'm not affected by that. But a lot of guys were using the same machine to record themselves as the Skype call. And, financially, a lot of people don't have enough, don't have the money to go out and buy multiple machines, and I would hope that they wouldn't have to. But so the folks are trying to figure out what they're going to do now with this change in the Skype API. Is that going to affect you guys at all? Probably not, is it?
I'm sorry, Todd, it just dropped out for a minute. So I just got the Skype API part, but can you just repeat that?
Yeah, the Skype is changing their API so that you can no longer basically capture through a secondary program the audio going on a. So if the Skype call was if you and I Skype call was on this desktop right here, and I was recording on this desktop, the change of the API will not allow me to actually do that capture anymore. I have to either go through a mixer or something else. The software connection that actually pulls both those recordings is yanked out of Skype. So there's a lot of content creators that are freaking out right now over that.
Yeah, this is not affecting us in any way because we didn't make use of that API. Actually, our desktop product is basically a browser-based product. So it's the whole recording console is on Google Chrome, Firefox, or whatever you use as a web browser. And you cannot access the Skype API from there anyways. So
right. Well, that's good.
Well, Todd, that kind of opens up an opportunity, I guess. And I'm not really sure, if there's a direct correlation here, but maybe platforms like Spreaker and others will come in and kind of fill that void. I don't, it's not clear to me that most people are going to want to go to the degree of trying to do Skype calls via, a mixer and the mix minus.
No, most won't.
Scenario. And so it will cause a lot of folks to scramble because it is kind of, it's not hard, but it is a little bit mentally complicated to do Skype correctly, and especially multi-Skype like this.
Yep.
It does require fairly complex wiring through a mixer and those kind of things that most people just wouldn't be able to comprehend. I know I have been pinged many times. Over the last couple of years to help podcasters here locally set exactly that same thing up, and that was prior to Skype pulling out the APIs. So I would imagine that there is going to be some solution that's going to pop up that will figure out a way to do this because there is a need for it, right?
Yeah, and when I first set this up, Rob, was I was still having people sometimes calling in on a landline, and I was using a phone bridge to put them in just like a radio station would do. So I needed 3 mix minuses, and when I basically added the Skype system, my mixer only had 2. So I had a perfectly good mixer that really, quite expensive mixer, and I had no choice. I had to go out and buy another mixer that had 3 mix minuses in order to do this correctly. And that new mixer was not cheap. That was was $700. Because as soon as you start adding mix minuses, the cost goes up.
Go way up, yeah.
And so and most people don't have that kind of cash laying around. And there's thank goodness that mixer's now is a number of years old. There's much cheaper alternatives now, but it's a financially to do it correctly can be very expensive.
Well, and one way to actually do it that I found is that if you get a USB kind of based kind of what's the correct term? If you can run your mixer through a USB kind of mixer of sorts into your computer, you can do these type of things.
Separate channels.
Without all the special wiring, because the USB capability allows for a full duplex type of scenario.
Yeah. And this system here is FireWire based, so it connects via FireWire. So it's that was a limitation on even that mixer, but it's you go with the infrastructure you have, but Francesco's sitting there laughing because all he needs is this.
Yeah, that's right. He's got the simple world.
And then believe me, there's mechanics behind that to make sure that works well too. But what do you need? You need your mobile phone. You don't need
Todd, it's
with the gears.
Yeah, it's just a software problem that needs to be solved, right? Yeah.
And believe me, it's a lot simpler. You say, here's the app, you press record, when you're done, you hit stop, and then the editing stuff that you have available. I would never use the editing suite. I don't edit as it is now. So,
So, a lot of that capability could just live in the cloud, right? It wouldn't have to be sitting on our desks.
So long as you've got a good connection. As long as you've got a good internet connection, if it's in the cloud, it'll work fine.
Well, and most people today have pretty good online connections. Yeah. So it's going to become less and less of an issue, and especially if Google Fiber gets their way across the country where we all have gigabit connections, right? Doing this kind of stuff is going to get easier.
But audio is also very low bandwidth. You don't need a lot.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's remarkably low compared to, the video we're pushing right now is going out at 1.5 megs, but the audio stream that I have, I think, is 44K or something like that. So it's, comparatively nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so from a, going back, I know we talked a little bit about your business, and you got a small team. I work with a small team too. It's nice when you don't have a multi-layers of corporate bureaucracy to go through to make a decision. You can basically do a decision in a conference call. How do you guys find then that you're working with your team in San Francisco? You spend a lot of time on Skype or GoToMeeting or something similar, and chatting back and forth?
Yeah, actually, our team in San Francisco is bare bones, like 2 individuals, of which one is me, and I do a lot of back and forth flying. The core of our team is here in Berlin, and we've been doing in the past a lot of Skype meetings and a lot of stuff, but really accelerated when we were able to stay all in the same room in our office here behind me. And that has been great. I mean, Berlin, one of the reasons we moved to Berlin was that in Italy as well, we were kind of having to commute, and some people were working from home a few days a week because we're like kind of far away, and we just took everyone and say, hey, let's go there and stay all together under the same roof and see what we can do, and it's been great.
Yeah, being underneath the same roof has its advantages, because even though my company works virtually too, I've got people spread out everywhere. It's not the same as, hollering at somebody at the next desk and, or having a quick conversation. It is adds to productivity, I'm sure, and collaboration. And, you don't spend 3 days making a decision on something. It can happen in a 2-minute conversation. So, is the environment in Berlin, though, from a, is it expensive to operate out of Berlin? We all know Silicon Valley and San Francisco is incredibly expensive, and of course I live here in Hawaii, and it's just insane. How's your operation cost in Berlin? Is it pretty high?
Not many people know this, but Berlin is actually one of the cheapest cities in Europe.
Really?
It's even cheaper living here in Berlin than living in Italy, and Italy is not very expensive. So everything comes at a fraction of the cost that comes in San Francisco or in Silicon Valley. And this means that at the end of the day, everyone is more happy. You can have more getaways with the team and more like of these funny stuff that you go together.
And with everything with the EU, then there's not even visa issues, is there? You can pretty much freely transverse and live where you need to and work. That's got to be an advantage. Yeah,
that's true. No visa problem. That was one of the main issues for me going to the United States. Here in Europe, we can just relocate from country to country. There are still some glitches with the law because we're still separate countries, of course.
Right.
But we have legislation that makes things a bit smooth.
Yeah. So getting the visa to come to the United States, how long did that take? Did it take a year or more?
Well, it took a few months, but I didn't have a full working permit visa. I only was allowed to do a few things, and it was temporary. So I had like a 6 months window that I was not allowed to take altogether. So it's like a lot of flights back and forth.
Yeah, that's a whole, Rob, look at how much, that's just got to be aggravating. You got someone that wants to come here, work, they're spending money, and then it's the whole visa process. I just can't imagine the frustration.
Yeah.
And look how easy it is in the EU. It's just, just drives me crazy.
Yeah. So I wonder, and I'm just kind of speculating aloud here, what's going on with podcasting and audio production, audio creation outside of the U.S.? Francesco, what are you seeing in Europe and across all the countries that you guys are making your app available? So is there a strong upswing in content production in the podcasting, audio, talk radio area across the world? Because I'm seeing it with the Windows Phone platform, and where I'm working, I see a lot more content being submitted to me in other languages and from other countries all around the world. And I'm just curious, are you seeing the same thing?
Well, we don't have that much history, so I can only speak about the last 3 years, and then we've been growing. So, of course, see things growing, but mainly because we are growing and getting more users on board.
You gotta love Skype.
Yeah, well, I think it's
the Spanish language.
We lost you for about 15 seconds, so go ahead and back up.
Sorry.
Don't worry.
I said what we've seen in the past year or so is that there has been a huge growth in the Spanish-speaking community, podcasts coming from Spain or Latin America, and that's an area that we think is very interesting. I mean, lots of talk content coming from here.
Yeah, I'm seeing the same thing from countries that you would never imagine would be involved in creating spoken word audio content. It's in podcast form, because that's all I primarily work with. I'm seeing it come in from Asia. I'm seeing it come in from the Middle East, in all languages you can imagine. It's really amazing to me, and I believe it's because of the capabilities of the smartphone are really starting to penetrate in a large way. Lots of countries around the world that were just on kind of feature phones for most of the history here. So what I'm saying is that the more of the world is kind of catching up to what the market has been in the U.S. and in Europe for many years.
It's just, I think the playing field is being leveled, and these folks are starting to realize that they can have a voice, and they're not, there's not a lot of trust in, regular media right now worldwide. I think some countries are maybe more than others, but, you look at Central America, what can you trust coming out of news organizations down there? It's got to be tough. So I would imagine people are they get to a certain either frustration level, or they want to have a way to artistically get out there and be heard. I think it's just natural. I think it's a natural progression. And like you said, with the networks getting better, I think like in Japan and so forth, the mobile space has been way, way ahead. But culturally, I don't think you'll see a lot of content come out of Japan just because of the way the culture is. But I think other countries, there's, the complete opposite. They love to talk and tell you their opinions. So I think we'll see a lot more.
Yeah, that's been my observation too. I don't see a lot of content coming out of Japan, though I see a fair amount of content coming out of Asia, though. Yeah.
And I think some countries are, I don't want to say militant, but I think some countries have a larger population of people that protest and fight the government and whatever it may be in their particular area, and this definitely gives them an opportunity. Do you, Rob, can you classify some of the content that's coming out of those countries, or is it basically, you kind of have to decipher the best you can?
Well, what's really interesting is that what I see coming out of those countries is typically in local language, but I do see English content coming out of these other countries as well, but it's usually a lesser degree than local language content that's being published, being pushed out of those countries and then being pushed into those countries as well. But I also see a lot of consumption of regular English-speaking content going into those countries too. So it's kind of a balance. I really, in most cases, building a catalog for any country in the world really needs to be all-inclusive of content from all around the world, because people want to get access to English content, but they also want to get access to local language content too.
Right. But did you see specific genres? Is it sports? Or does it run the full spectrum?
I would say in certain countries it's focused on areas that are, I don't know, it's hard to generalize because it is all over the map. But yeah, I know it's hard for me to really kind of single it down because I see kind of submissions coming in from a lot of different content folks. It's news, it's comedy, talk. I mean, from all countries are getting involved in this, and gaming is important. Politics is important. All of the core stuff. I mean, I think that there's just a lot of similar type of interests that spans the globe. And I think if you look at, like a content provider like the BBC, I think they're a really, really good example of what's going on a global basis with podcasting. Is that they're probably I would say the BBC is probably the biggest podcast content creation platform in the world right now, because they create content in different countries across many, from news to politics to arts to celebrity. I mean, just in music and all this stuff, and it's really, really fascinating to see this growth and expansion of things that we've just taken for granted here in the U.S. for many years.
I know there in Germany, the actual podcasting community is very big, and there's a great German ecosphere. But because so few people speak German outside of Germany, there's it's really kind of isolated. And I know a lot of the guys that do German shows also do English accompanying shows as well. It's funny because we are here in the United States. We are the least bilingual of any country in the world. Everyone else speaks 3-4 languages, and most of us, we speak English. And part of it is because everyone else does speak English, and it's made us lazy. So,
well, Todd, I do think that's changing, though. I mean, if you look at the overall demographics of the U.S., those that are single language speakers is becoming less and less the majority.
Yeah, in my house, I've got Japanese, Chinese, and English speakers, so it's not Chinese as much, but a little bit. All right, we are almost here at the bottom of the hour. Rob, what is on the schedule? You've got some we got a pretty good guest lineup over the next month. Who's next up next weekend for?
We have Callie Lewis from Geek Beat TV.
Well, that's going to be great.
Long-time podcaster.
Yeah, so it'll be great to have Callie on and get caught up on what she's doing over there in her studio. And we'll have to talk about her flood. You heard about their flood, right? We'll have to talk about that and their recovery from that and everything that went on and what they've got kicking. I think they just got back from... They were someplace in Europe here recently. They were on an airplane going somewhere. I know that. So,
I think they were in London, maybe?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I can't remember where they were going, but they were flying business, so they had to show off their business seats on one of their tweets or something. So Spreaker, folks, we definitely get the Spreaker app loaded up on your... Is it on Android also? Is it iOS and Android?
iOS and Android. Okay,
so folks, get that out, check it out. And you heard the story on how to get on to iHeartRadio. So those of you that are already creating content, this is a great way to get out there. And if you get picked, you get your hosting bill picked up by iHeart, which is pretty cool. So that's incentive alone to try to get on iHeart is they pick up your hosting bill. Any closing comments, Francesco?
Not really. I mean, I'm been really happy to take part with the show. Getting in touch with us. I mean, we started with as a platform for helping people get their word out, and some of the people who were already podcasting started getting on Spreaker, and then we're trying to help them more and more. And I think it all comes down to listening to what you guys need, and if we can of any help to you, we're tech people. We just want to create it and put it into the platform.
And what's the best way for them to reach out? Is it on Twitter or on Facebook? What's the best way to reach you guys?
We usually prefer either Facebook or email because we get a lot of tweets and it's hard to sort out tweets. So they're mostly, the email addresses of the whole team are on our contact page on the website. Then we have our Facebook page at facebook.com/Spreaker, and just drop us a line there and we'll just get back to you and we'll be very happy to talk to you.
So are you going to be at like the National Association of Broadcasters or a radio show that's coming up, or do you guys get involved in kind of the podcasting, talk radio, trade shows kind of stuff?
I'm sorry, Rob. You just froze for like 10 seconds, so I.
Oh, it did. Okay. Yeah. So I was just curious. Are you guys involved in like the National Association of Broadcasters radio show at all? Do you attend those types of shows? The reason I'm asking is, are there any shows that podcasters can talk to you guys directly at?
We don't actually so far. I've been there, but only as part of the audience. Some of our guys will probably be at the New Media Expo in January in Vegas, I guess, and
yes.
We'll let everyone have the details on our website when we know for sure.
Very cool. If you make it to New Media Expo, definitely give me a shout out. We can chit chat. I'm only going to be there maybe one day of the show because we've got CES that's ramping up right ahead of it, and I'm pretty involved in that production. But I'll definitely be there for the Podcast Awards and all that stuff as well. So. But, hey, thanks for being on. We appreciate having you. I know it's now a little after 7 o'clock your time or 7:30, so thanks for taking time out on your Saturday evening, and we look forward to see what Spreaker's going to be doing next. For everyone else, if you have comments on today's show, you can email Rob or I. It's either Todd at New Media Show or Rob at newmediashow.com. Of course, you can reach me on Twitter at Geek News, and Rob, you're at Rob Greenlee, correct?
Correct. Yep. And if you're a podcaster and you want to get your show submitted to the Windows Phone platform, you can send a podcast or an email to podcasts@microsoft.com.
That's a powerful email address, Rob.
Yeah, that's right. It's easy to remember. That's totally what I was looking for.
So, any movement on the Xbox One front? We were hearing all these rumors about Windows 8 functionality and apps and stuff. Did that get a little blown out of proportion, or?
Oh, what part specifically are you just looking for a more open?
Well, they basically said if you can run an app on Windows 8, you're going to be able to run it on the Xbox.
Well, I don't think they're quite there yet.
Okay.
I think that's possibly the goal here is to bring these devices together into one kind of app ecosystem. They're not there yet. But I think where you're going to see that come together sooner is between Windows Phone and Windows. I think that's going to be the first place where you see the combination of creating one app that could be published into and made available to both, right? With slight kind of UI changes. Whether or not there's an easy path to make it from Windows to Xbox, I think that's probably further off, and I'm not sure that that's actually even been formally announced that that's even ever going to be possible. So
there was some rumors on the street, and someone had made a comment, and then Microsoft came back and said, "Well, not quite so fast." But
and I think that as you think about what's happening, and I know that you've been pretty outspoken about apps on Apple TV.
Yeah.
I think as you think about those two devices, the Xbox and Apple TV, they're kind of thought of in the same vein, right? So I'm not so sure that they're going to, but I don't know this for sure. I think it just depends on what happens here in the future, that those platforms will ever be 100% opened up.
I think Apple will eventually open their platform up. I think they're just waiting for their premier device to do it. So we'll see. Time will tell. I just wish they would hurry up. That might help the Xbox team along a little bit. Give them a little nudge.
Well, Todd, I think that, I mean, if you think about what those devices do and what their focus is, I think that the companies will feel that being a little bit of a filter into what goes in there makes sense.
Well, it's their cash machine, so of course they're going to filter.
Yeah, well, that, and also
they don't care. They don't care what the users want.
Well,
let's be honest, they don't.
Well, yeah, I don't know that I would go quite that far, Todd, but I think that it's really about, most people think of those devices for consuming types of content, right? The TV, games, right, and maybe some audio content that could be available on these, on the Apple TV as well as the Xbox, right? And they're going to want to have, I mean, if you have 200,000 or 1 million apps on an Apple TV or an Xbox, then it just becomes kind of a mess, right? I mean, that's the perception anyway. I'm not saying that's
if you can add
that's what I believe, but I'm just saying that's the perception.
Oops. If you
all right,
add
people, I need a go for the.
We had something go haywire here.
A Rogue TriCaster.
Yeah, a Rogue TriCaster. I think I know what the problem is now. I've narrowed it down. Well, it's all, we have our choice here, so we'll see if they ever give us a choice on the device. Anyway, that's a conversation we've had many times.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here. And everyone, we'll see you next Saturday with Callie. And until then, send us your emails and your comments. And I guess we'll kick out of here. Everyone that's been up on YouTube, thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Take care. And from here in Hawaii, aloha. Okay. And let me shut off the YouTube stream.